Devie Mohan. I'm super pleased to meet you.
Yeah.
Finally.
And pleasure to be here.
So, let's take some questions. I like questions. What do you guys got? Did you come from research originally? Like you've done a lot of research reporting and fundamental stuff.
I started my career with Goldman Sachs as an equities analyst, so there is an element of research. But then I said, I hate this job, and I said, I want to do something more fun. I went into pure marketing. So I did more marketing strategy, branding, that kind of stuff, which I really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. So this is now I'm bringing my my trade, my learning in research. I've done an MBA and focused on market research. So and combining that with the branding that I've been doing over the years. So it's
but you kind of built your own brand.
Yeah.
Your name itself is known, so therefore, like you did something, a lot of things right.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how it's much easier to do it for yourself than for companies you work for, I find. But yeah, and it's all about really understanding who you are, I think, and that's something that companies themselves struggle with, and that's I'm sure the case with you guys and anyone you meet, any large company I've worked with, have struggled to get that. I spent a year trying to figure that out with. We didn't. I just couldn't. I mean, I tried my best, but we couldn't. Are we Fintech? Are we helping Fintechs? Are we an innovator ourselves, or are we part of the innovation ecosystem? It's really hard to figure out who you are. I mean,
you as a person, or that
the company,
in the company?
The company.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about the management team would think of you being a Fintech or you being a key innovation partner, whereas if you talk to people in the innovation team, they have a completely different idea of how they're playing in the market. They would think that you're actually building an ecosystem for innovators to play in, and you're not the innovator yourself. So
isn't that how most people feel? That's why I said it's so weird when I said we're kind of, because everyone misunderstands this I word, this innovation word.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways you can try to do it.
Yeah. I think personally, and I think this is the best way for fintech to grow, is by creating ecosystems where innovation can be done by any party and everyone enables everyone else. And that's a very utopian scenario about innovation, but it can really be done. For example, even if you look at this case, they have something absolutely fantastic with their news feeds and data feeds. All you need to do is build that into a model for startups to play with. It's exactly what banks are trying to do, and let the startups play with it. Let them innovate really fast, much faster than you. You're not going to be able to do that yourself. And then when they do that, plug it in and have that solution or that platform available to your customers. Let them play with it. So
this is this theory that they have, that banks are basically becoming media companies, right? Mm-hmm. As they put on front-end marketing, they stopped sending big, thick research reports.
Yeah.
And they started to go direct to consumer and try to keep up with what's happening in the rest of the world, which is it's super easy on these things to just get everything you need, right?
Yeah.
And so they're trying to catch up to that, which is to me what digital is all about.
Yeah.
But I don't think the media company you mentioned, nor the banks really get the pace of it.
No. And that's the thing. I mean, I think it's just hard to accept that you are not going to be able to do it at the pace the market needs. And that's the fundamental realization most people can't get. I know banks, not you, but I know banks who have hired 600 to 700 people for the innovation team, saying we can actually do it faster than the startups out there. Right. But look at them, they're not getting there.
It's not about the number of people.
It's nothing to do with the scale or the resources or the availability of capital. It's nothing to do with any of that. I mean, you would think that, okay, you have a scaled up version of a startup. Why not? You have access to capital, resources, all the support you need. You would create 10 equivalent startups in that framework, but no, they haven't. And that goes on to our conclusion that, it's not about scale. It is about working in smaller groups, having that ecosystem, sharing with each other, and growing really, really fast.
I tend to believe you, because what are those 600 people actually working on? When they hire up 500-600, when a big bank puts an innovation lab in Tel Aviv and another one in Australia and another one in Hong Kong, what are they actually doing with?
They're scouting for startups, pretty much, most of them.
Doing what for startups?
Scouting.
Just scouting. Yeah.
The second thing they do is they build their own digital layers on top of the legacy to hide what's underneath, which is where most of the time goes. I think some of them are doing that better than the others. And the problem is there are hundreds of legacy systems, including mainframes, and really old systems you need to hide without firing the people. So
you know what I found out recently?
Yeah.
COBOL was invented in Switzerland. I think so. Somebody fact check me on
What's
Google on this and tell me when I'm wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I heard. COBOL is still.
It's
like,
such a weird.
in
I
the-
learned COBOL
Did you?
I did computer engineering, so I learned COBOL, and that was the language we learned back then.
You did computer engineering too.
Yeah, that's my undergrad. Yeah. So, and we actually did COBOL programming because the whole year 2000 thing was happening,
Yeah.
and said every mainframe will have to be reprogrammed with COBOL. So the whole market for COBOL programmers is huge. So everyone was trying to learn COBOL.
Yeah.
And so
And it's still big.
yeah,
It's still big, of course. The thing is, if you have that's actually you married up a bunch of stuff, probably not even knowing it at the time, but looking back across the dots, like Steve Jobs used to say. You had computer engineering,
Yeah.
research, fundamental, and how do we actually construct research and think,
Yeah.
and then document that,
Yeah.
and then you had the whole thing around what is media and publishing and
Yeah,
marketing. So
yeah.
you've seen all the pieces of it to actually be an
Yeah.
innovator.
Yeah.
So like, have you been part of the founding of some startups then, as they've launched through FinTech or other places?
I have helped several fintech startups as a marketing and strategy advisor. So I haven't founded anything. I did found a media company maybe 6-7 years ago, which was a complete disaster. We folded in a year. But the idea was, it's funny, someone did the same idea and they got acquired by Yahoo for $10 million. So just not a bad idea. But the idea was really getting the news sources and curating it as a summary and kind of intelligently telling you this is the most important news and this is why it's important. So it's the background of why it's important. So if you're saying Trump makes a policy or Obamacare is launched, that's the news that you see. But why is it important and what are the changes that have happened over the years that have led to Obamacare? That's something that, except in editorial sections.
That's still valid. I mean, did Yahoo buy it out of defense and kill it, or did they? Because I haven't really seen that as a consumer.
Yeah.
I don't feel the curation as much as I should do.
I mean, I think at that time what I lacked was social media coverage with the media outlet. So there was no interaction, there was no sharing, which has changed now in that now I have a network. But yeah, I mean, it was a great idea, but someone did the same idea and he had a really good AI tool to do it. And they got acquired by Yahoo.
What kind of AI?
I don't know. I mean, I think he did a lot of manual curation as well. So they had a team of people doing manual curation and an AI engine that picks up all the positive news, negative news around this and kind of bring it together as a 5-sentence summary.
Was there a famous story of this 17, 16 years old
That's it. That's
teenager
it.
that did his algorithm and
Yeah.
and he became multi-millionaire
Yeah.
at
That's
16.
it. That's the story. So that happened probably the same time that I was doing this, but he did it much better. So.
He was all over the media because he was like 16.
He was 70, he was in high school when he started programming. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that we played with just in this space was we looked at Data Miner and some other startups, and there's hundreds of them. There's Ripjar here in the UK, they're former MI5 guys, right? Like very good information specialists and data researchers and scientists. And they try to pull together a value proposition which takes Twitter Firehose or something else and says, here's what just happened, therefore do this to your investments.
Yeah.
And for a wealth manager, what we landed on is it doesn't matter. Because we have a long-term strategic allocation and it's made to be bulletproof. And therefore, once that tank is driving, you kind of let it drive and you adjust its course over time.
Right.
But if you know on a 20-second delay that whatever just took place, right? There's been a big flood or an act of God somewhere. You shouldn't go rebalancing clients' portfolios immediately for that. It's just not our strategy. Therefore, for us, we couldn't really apply it as much as I thought. I think for investment banks and asset managers, it might have more application.
But what do you think? I mean, the kind of data available is changing as well. So, for example, you said there could be random events happening. There's much better data available on those events and the impact of those events on your investments on one side. And then you also have the breadth. You have social media data that gives you sentiments of the market, for example. Have you started looking at the depth and the breadth of that data and how you can actually change?
We've looked at client preferences around what's happening. So who's very reactive, who's reactive and shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And I can explain some of those things. But we looked at AugerNet, which is prediction markets,
Right.
and some other prediction markets companies
Yeah.
like them.
Yeah.
And also very investment bank oriented.
Yeah.
Like we're in the city of London, so
Yeah.
kind of the culture of investment banking. Whereas
Yeah.
from a Swiss wealth management perspective,
Yeah.
I couldn't find a way to apply it.
What we did, we analyzed the behaviors of the clients, like the transactions, rather than
Right.
the sentiment on social media.
Market.
Yeah.
I mean, we do believe, as Dave said, we are like long-term strategy. For us, the reaction to the U.S. election is more of noise, and actually, it's proven that you cannot understand what's gonna happen out of the social media, because I don't have a single friend that supported Donald Trump explicitly on Facebook. So,
I did. I mean, I didn't support
but
him, but
like,
I did predict that
but
he
like,
was going to win.
for me, it was like, yeah, okay, I had like 2 out of maybe
Yeah.
300 others were supporting.
That's an
Hillary.
interesting element, because my network, just looking at my Twitter feed, it was very clear. Almost all of them are Trump supporters.
All of them
Yeah.
Trump supporter,
Yeah.
really?
So it was so obvious. So when I would tell everyone that, I'm seeing Trump support growing massively, and my feed is literally full of Trump, like Hillary Clinton memes.
For me, it was the opposite. That's funny.
And so that again goes to show how your social network kind of influences what you see, right?
But you kind of knew what would happen then.
Yeah, I mean, I
Because you
did.
saw it for
Yeah,
yourself.
I actually placed a few bets as well.
No way.
Yeah, I did. Because the odds are great.
Yeah.
And no one was believing me in the UK that I kept saying, I started predicting when Brexit happened, because, it kind of very similar, 49-51 kind of poll divide, and then, the unknown, the people who you don't actually poll make sure that Brexit happened. And I could see that was exactly what's happening with Trump. We were talking to the wrong people with the polls.
This thing about people you don't poll,
Yeah.
that's very interesting.
Yeah, and that's
The
the
things you
people
don't
who,
know.
yeah, the things you don't know is what pushed Brexit happen and Trump happen. And I could see that. I predicted it, and people would laugh at me. But there you go. I think Simpsons predicted it, and I did.
But that's what's interesting for me. It's so business-like about wealth management. It's a long-term strategy business.
Yeah.
Therefore, you're looking after
Yeah.
Billions in client wealth,
Yeah.
sometimes down to an individual level, and they do care about the things that they don't know more than the things that they do know.
And
So, like, I can't send research reports
No.
to people and get them interested,
No.
but they want to see new things.
yeah,
Like this whole innovation story and what we're trending for tech trends and things.
yeah,
Most people want to know about that because they run
Yeah.
businesses.
yeah, yeah.
We can almost turn that into a business.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what my thinking was when I launched Burnmark. So we, I don't know if you've seen the research report that we did last month on Challenger banking. And we're
I
doing
saw it on social.
No, I'm doing InsurTech next week. The whole idea of the research report is we will give you just a flavor, because no one can tell you exactly what's happening, and that's my genuine belief. If you go by a report and take your decisions around it, not a good idea today, because the unknown is too big. It's getting too big. So what I want to do is, in the research report, which is a front end, we publish all the relevant insights and makes you start thinking, and then all that data is made available on a platform beneath it, which I haven't launched yet. But so what that will enable the users to do is really go back, look at the data, and take their own decisions. Why should we take decisions for really smart users?
So it's enabling
Yeah.
a client or anyone really
Anyone, yeah.
to make their own decisions
Yeah.
based on stuff that they
Yeah.
didn't know that they can now know.
Exactly, and the research report is just a front end. I mean, it's great to read reports, and I used to read 6 reports early in the morning when I was with Goldman Sachs, and it gives you a lot of information, but what it does is put you in a very comfortable zone where you don't think beyond it. You don't know what's happening outside of those reports. They're extremely well written. It puts you in a false comfort zone, and that's what's happening to all the banks. Why don't you question things? Why do we look at the larger picture and all the data available to you before you make that decision?
It's true. Every research report I
Yeah.
ever read
Yeah.
kind of has that perfect introduction and conclusion. And
can we
if you read the whole thing,
things?
you think, well, that was it.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's only one view.
And it's a very, very big problem because you're blind to things that the researcher hasn't thought about. And it's one human being who's done that.
So what does Burnmark actually do then? So it tries to look across all the reports and pull out, like, do you use AI to look through them?
No, we manually do it. So right now I do the research and writing myself, in that I already have a lot of the data, so it's just putting it out there. But what we do is we publish data that other people haven't seen. For example, with challenger banking, I did the whole market size. So I talked to every challenger bank out there, pretty much all of them in the UK, and I looked at some of the growth figures by the Goldman Sachs and BBVA research teams, and then we did the whole market sizing. And no one had talked to the challenger banks ever in terms of the market that they're going to capture in the next 5 years. So we were the first ones to do that. So we're looking at completely new data. So even though I put the final figures out there, it's all, I mean, I just want to make it clear that that's numbers got from a bunch of people in the UK with a limited view of, the banking market. But the banking industry is much bigger than that. You need to go back and look at the factors, macroeconomic factors. So for example, is the age. As people get older, they are less likely to download more and more apps. So that's one demographic phenomenon. So challenger bank, second, question mark. The other question mark to me is the younger generation, the Generation Z, or people who were born after 2000. They don't trust the internet the way Generation Y trusts the internet. And that's proven. So, I mean, I worry when the whole fintech innovation talks about millennials, because millennials are not going to behave this way in the future. That's not going to happen.
It's already changing.
It's already changing. I mean, they want security, they want control of their data, they want privacy. They want to authenticate everything. They don't put things out on Instagram. I don't know if you've done that research on Instagram, because the age group is like 25 to 35 is like the biggest chunk on Instagram.
Yeah.
And you don't see that many younger people joining anymore.
Yeah, it's happening. Also in Facebook, like the people I meet below 21, 22, they don't have Facebook.
Yeah.
Or like 50-50. My age, all of them have Facebook.
So, I mean, we can have growth predictions as much as we want, but you're discounting for macroeconomic factors.
But what do the challenger banks say? I mean, aren't those mostly retail banks in the UK, and they've got additional services strapped onto their retail bank?
The challenger banks will be completely new banks launched purely on a digital medium, so like an app or a website. Yeah. So they're mostly apps.
Territory.
Yeah.
All right.
In the UK, I think there are about 26 new banks who got licenses or who are getting licenses in the UK. So a huge market. So everybody in the world is now saying, UK challenger banking market, the largest market, let's go find a place there. But
so do you think Burnmark, just to bring it back and close that one off, so that's basically its pitch, is figuring out how can we give them media that doesn't have to run through an app, but that gives people a good sense of what they didn't know.
Yeah, it gives them a very good sense of how to think beyond what you already know. And then you come back and find out more, do your own, make your own conclusions.
It didn't sound very scalable. It's not running on tech, it's running on a manual process. But that can also work depending on how
the
where
tech
you've got
platform, we are building a whole machine learning platform underneath to do this automatic data compilation. So in the future, the idea is to make this reports automatically with tech. So we haven't done that yet.
Which startups are you able to say, like, which startups do you think can do it? Have you talked with them yet?
I haven't spoken to anyone, so I have an advisor who's building that for me. He did the whole big data platform. So he's doing that, but I'm fundraising at the moment, so without funds, it's hard to do that.
Are you going to, do you mind if I ask, are you going to go into an accelerator?
I have applied to YC in
California
and founded startups. I'm not keen on accelerators in the UK.
Those are the big ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, YC I probably won't because I applied after the deadline, so I have.
But you know Eric Vanderklesch, right?
Sorry?
Eric Vanderklesch, level 39.
Yeah.
You could apply for Kickstart Accelerator in Zurich.
Yeah.
I thought, just to give them a plug, sorry again, but they did a good job. They did a really good job.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, the startups that went through,
Yeah.
they didn't come out with like PowerPoints and their big idea, just talk for 3 minutes and leave the stage.
Yeah.
Like at the end, they all went up in the finals. You guys were there, remember? And they said, while we were in Switzerland, we learned that we were wrong about this and this, and we got 2 customers.
Yeah.
And one of them already dropped out, but the one customer we rebased the business around, and I've got enough sales to sustain. They were like super focused on creating a business. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
In Zurich.
In Zurich.
Yeah, a good group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
Good spirit because it's so young there.
Yeah.
Level 39 is huge.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like going to university.
Yeah.
To find your way in there takes a year.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with so many startups. That's the irony, right? I mean, I've spent probably 2 years in level 39 talking to startups. But I haven't looked at the other side in terms of how the accelerators benefit them. So,
You're a mentor, right?
Yeah, I'm a mentor.
Officially.
So I'm a mentor for probably about 4 or 5 different accelerator programs.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe because I'm such a part of it, I've decided to apply to Silicon Valley. But anyway.
4 or 5 accelerator programs in London?
Globally, so I'm part of the Startup Bootcamp, Level 39, there's one called Handay Finmaker in China, which they've recently launched, and the Wealth Management Accelerator at Octopus Capital, and one more in India, the Yes Bank Accelerator program.
And do you do this mentorship remotely, like Skype or something, or do you actually go there?
I actually go.
Oh,
So
wow, really?
I probably spend like a week in London. I have a team in Berlin, so Bernmark has a team in Berlin,
Okay.
so that's where I spend a lot of time as well.
But then, where do you? Where's your official address? Like, where do you actually live?
London.
You're not here much.
No,
Okay.
but that's the world. I mean, I think that's the beauty of fintech. I mean, you just collaborate so much across the world. And Singapore, I don't know if you saw, read my stuff, but my latest articles on Singapore as a fintech hub. Amazing stuff that's happening in Singapore. It's very worrying to me. And I've actually said, I've worked in London and Berlin very closely, but Singapore is going way beyond what we expect. Yeah.
Why is that?
One thing is that they are willing to have an open immigration policy, and that anyone, anywhere in the world can come and start a startup. They will get a visa for 6 months. If they don't have a successful startup, they don't start fundraising, they lose the visa, but they can come in and start something, talk to investors.
So they have 6 months to prove.
Yeah.
Prove they can make it.
6 months to prove. They give free space to almost all the fintech startups. The MAS opens up every bank's APIs through the MAS sandbox. So pretty much they understand every single bank in Asia, in Southeast Asia, through the sandbox. It's like an amazing ecosystem to work in.
But is it just specific to banks and fintech? Or
They're
is it-
very big into fintech, yeah.
But they're open to all startups from every
I
industry.
think the government selected a few topics, and one of those is fintech. Then they have like driverless cars. They have biotech.
Okay.
Like they have some special policies about testing on DNA that like stuff that are not allowed in Europe to do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they do experiments that would be forbidden
Wow.
in Europe. I mean, in 5 years in Singapore, you will be able to say, I want my kid to be that tall with blue eyes and smart.
That's scary. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. It's nobody knows about it, but it's kind of in Singapore they do this.
And we've been out there. Giorgio and I went out a few times in the past 2 years, and we were launching pre-product in a sandbox out there to get client feedback. So the innovation job. And we have a team out there. It's not my team, but it's a different team at the bank. And they're very good. I mean, they've got those big factories that used to produce the world's VCRs and televisions, and they're just sitting empty. So you might as well fill them with young bodies and try to create the future. And they've got tons of money. And the immigration thing works for them. They've got a great airport system and a great transport system and a great security system.
And
pretty easy to control that island.
The market size available to them is much larger than we imagine here in Europe, I think, even in the US. Because it's not just Singapore. We are looking at Malaysia, Thailand, a bit of Australia, India, China, a bit of Hong Kong. So you're talking about a huge market available right there. There was a company in India I was reading about. They do prepaid charging. They call themselves FinTech, but the automatic prepaid charging of their credit. And they got something like 300 million customers in 6 months from launching. And
300 million?
Yeah. We don't have that many people to attack in Europe, as a company. So It's ridiculous, the scale available in Asia.
But you gave me a good sense for what you do, where you came from, who you are, so that helps me a lot. And we should continue to talk further. I want to show you some of the ideas that we've got and stuff. But I think we could kind of end what we took here as a Maker Zone. I hope you enjoyed that. This is Devie Mohan. I'm super pleased to meet you.
Yeah.
Finally.
Pleasure to be here.
So let's take some questions. I like questions. What do you guys got?